Richard, you spend a ton of time in the sales training and continuous learning realm. And
For sure.
I've always looked back because I've spent a ton of time training and really passionate about coaching sellers. And I will say, just my casual observation of this is where I feel sales training goes amiss is when you stick the landing. You have a phenomenal sales training. Everybody's jazzed, everybody's ready to rock. And then it becomes a one-off and you don't
Oh,
have these milestones in place to continue and keep the momentum or to have checkpoints on what have we learned? How do we need to, pivot or adapt or adopt? Or there's new tools and new learnings that are out there in the market, but we're not learning them. I liken that to being a surgeon, but not learning that new life-saving procedure and clinging to an older way that might be less effective. It's like, eventually you're going to become obsolete as a seller if you don't learn these new tools, new tips and tactics, and sharpen your axe. What say you?
well, you're right on some things that I've been talking about and speaking about because number one, if you don't have an action plan, if you don't have a follow up plan, you will fail. It's like reading the latest diet craze. You can diet for 3 months or get on the latest keto, meto, Cheeto diet that you want to get on.
The
And
Cheeto diet.
the
You
Cheeto
just
diet, I think
that'll be a hashtag by the end of the day. The Cheeto diet.
the Cheeto diet. And you get on it for 3 months. And unless you have a plan of what happens when you're off of that diet, and that's why you need to have a meal plan, a lifestyle plan, a workout plan, an actual plan of engagement when that 3 months is finished. That's why I encourage people to make lifestyle changes, not just a diet plan. And the same thing's true what you're talking about with sales training uh, or having this new latest craze of the Challenger sales book or this new sales advantage method, or I've just read this new sales book. We're going to jump on this. All of that stuff is great. But unless there is an action plan, a continuous learning action plan, and I think I share with you, and some mentors along the way to say, hey, here's how I implemented some of this stuff. Let me pour into your life for a year. Let me pour into your life for this amount of time, and I'm going to hand you off to someone else that can really take you a little bit further. I'll never forget the time when I had a mentor that told me, I've taken you as far as I can take you. And I said, what?
Wow.
He said, yeah, I've taken you as far as I can take you. However, I know someone that I want to hand you off to that can take you deeper and further. And I thought, how profound that he recognized that and handed me off. Maybe he was just tired of dealing with me and thought, well, I've got to give this guy to somebody else. But I thought, how profound to even realize that.
That reminds me of a scene in one of my favorite films, The Color of Money, when, Fast Eddie, no spoilers in case somebody hasn't seen it, but Fast Eddie reaches the point where he's like he realizes he's got nothing left to teach young Vincent Loria. And now I think what's interesting about that, Richard. I look at the sales trainer or sales coach relationship to a seller similarly, in the sales ecosystem to a seller's relationship with a customer. You're bringing value, you're investing in that relationship. You've got to stay at the pulse of the seller as a coach and as a trainer, and you've got to understand what is going to ultimately get them on and keep them on the path to success. And it's constant, checks and balances, peaks and valleys. We will default to what I like to call comfortable ways of mediocrity or comfortable ways of failing. And that's why these constant touch points, these trainings are important. What's interesting, like I started a plan 2 years ago that I thought was just freaking brilliant. It had a cool acronym and we rolled this thing out to much pomp and circumstance and everybody was all fired up. It was at the beginning of the year. And what happened is it fell flat midway through the year. It was kind of discombobulated and I tried to like bring back semblances of it, but it didn't have a good enough framework. As I advance in my sales and my sales leadership career, what I've learned I need more and more of is just focus. I need
Yeah.
focus and strategic mapping. You don't need massive, big swing changes to your process. Often you just have to lean into what works and adapt and pivot based on what works and what doesn't. I'm a student. I'm a student of selling. I study what works and what doesn't. I jettison the stuff that doesn't work because we don't have time for it. There's so much noise. We get pulled in a million different directions. And that's why some of the power and the impact of this training dissipates over time. It's kind of like the honeymoon phase. You know, you
Yeah.
you
Great
you
point.
have this puppy love, right? And it dissipates over time. But I'll tell you, my love for my wife and my love for sales have something in common as they just continue to get bigger and brighter over the years. And so I think that's the key element is when I look at sales training and continuous learning, if you love and you want to master your craft, you invest in that and you stay attuned to what's happening in the market. You listen, you watch, you seek out the greats. I want to find everybody who wins the company awards, and I just want to sit and listen to them. I don't want nor do I need to be the smartest guy in the room ever. In
Oh,
fact, if I am, I'm in the wrong room, right? So, I think those are the key elements about training is everywhere. You can seek out continuous learning everywhere, but as an organization that often does train, we also have to be cognizant that that momentum will dissipate. How can we put the framework in place that's going to guarantee success?
yeah, and that's the key. And I'll just close with this. One of the things we are trying to build in more and more and more with our training is those follow up action steps 3 months, 6 months, a year down
Yes.
the road, because those follow ups are probably more important. We often say, oh, this weekend you're going to be drinking from a fire hose, or these 3 days we're going to be pouring this training into you. It's going to be like drinking out of a waterfall. Well, that's real encouraging. So you're going to be drowning me with all this 20% of the information, maybe 25% of the information I'm going to take home. And if I'm really taking good notes, maybe 33 or 35%. So how do we get that up to 50 to 60 to 75%? The only way you can do that is with a really solid action plan of some goals and some flagship action items along the way afterwards. And then number two, some follow up mentor progress check ins.
Yeah.
And it really is. And you really hit on it as well, Carson, that focused, zeroed in, transformative, really shotgun approach, getting all the other stuff out of the way and focusing in on the stuff that works. And that is one of the reasons why you are who you are.
Focus and discipline is what I've learned. Those are the tools of the trade. Richard Vickers, the king of the mic drop moment. Always good to
Oh
see
my
you, my
goodness.
friend. Thanks for being on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
See you next time, sir.